that Salah Aluri has been killed in Lebanon. What do you make of that news?
Well, you look at it from a counterterrorism perspective, it certainly was a very tactical operation. It, in all probability, required eyes on the target from a counterterrorism operational perspective. I also find it very interesting that the target was on the Rewards for Justice program list, which was, a program that literally we started on my watch back in the day, JJ. So this was a gentleman that had a long history of enemies and, certainly not only of interest to the United States government, but obviously to the IDF as well.
That's exactly right. And I wanted to harken back to your days at the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service. Tell us about what you know about Al Aruri.
Well, it looks like he has a very interesting position now, I would say, from a current perspective, in that he's hunkered down in Beirut, obviously under the Hezbollah protective umbrella, which certainly provides him, it would have psychologically with a degree of what he would perceive security in the area. And it would be that, JJ, from my understanding of just operational capability in Beirut, it was always a very difficult environment for us to operate in. There is always historical concern for, the bombings that happened in '83 and '84, the embassies and the Marine barracks and so forth. But when you look at that just from operating a denied area and the Israelis having that kind of tactical capability, which they've always shown to be able to do that, I hearken back to the hit on Ali Hassan Salameh of Black September in Beirut in the '70s. That again was a very difficult operating environment. And, look, when you look at this high value target from the Israelis' perspective, it certainly would resonate throughout the Hamas leadership as well as the PIDGE leadership and the Hezbollah leadership, which I find interesting simply because you really are rattling the Hezbollah cage now. Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, I would think, would have to retaliate in some capacity. And the thing that is worrisome to me in that, obviously, the logical target sets would be missiles raining on Tel Aviv, for example. But there's a side of me that says, with the anniversary tomorrow of the assassination of IRGC General Qasem Soleimani, that timing is kind of very curious for some degree of retaliation. And I've been around this business long enough, JJ, to know that that retaliation has always surprised us. And that's a little bit worrisome to me. Obviously, Israel's the logical target, but it would not necessarily have to be inside of Israel. It could be an Israeli target somewhere else.
So this individual goes back to the early 1990s, and I believe you were still a part of the State Department at that point, the Diplomatic Security Service. So give me your view on his impact during your watch, and he was a young person then. Give me your view of his impact on the terrorism world at that time.
Well, it's interesting to me if you harken back in those days. Remember, we had the Middle East peace conferences going on, running all around, either having events inside the United States, most notably in the DC area, as well as diplomatic junkets around trying to have peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And we have Arafat visiting the United States during this time period, who we protected, along with a range and host of different Israeli leaders, from Rabin to Perez to General Sharon, and the list goes on. And then you look at the organization in that time period. In order to get on the Rewards for Justice list, there's a process, and it's an interagency process, meaning JJ and Fred just can't unilaterally put an individual like him on that list. And so you're going to be coordinating with state, CIA, the FBI, and DOD, and placing individuals that you believe have U.S. blood on their hands, that are in a leadership kind of role or are trigger pullers. And, the process is very well vetted. There's a lot of oversight on who goes on that list and so forth. And, with this individual, you had a $5 million bounty on his head, which certainly wasn't at the bin Laden range, but it was enough to hopefully draw somebody out that might say, this is where I know the individual is, and so forth. But, look, as you step back and think about this, JJ, the interesting aspect is, the Israelis, the Mossad, they have been laser fixated on Iran and the nuclear development program, and all of a sudden the war starts, and there's a surprise element for what took place, which we still don't have good answers for. But there's going to be some historical targeting profiles of Hamas leaders, Palestinian Islamic Jihad leaders, PIJ leaders, Hezbollah leaders that you're going to pull off a shelf, and you're just going to update your targeting profile. So, the ability for the Israelis to operate inside of Hezbollah stronghold from a counterintelligence perspective is going to cause a lot of ripples throughout the Hezbollah security apparatus. And they're going to be looking for informants. They're going to be looking for individuals that perhaps assisted the IDF in this operation. I know the IDF hasn't claimed credit for it. Having said that, they're the most logical persons to pull the trigger in this case.
Yeah, one other really quick thing on this, Fred. The impact on the United States and what people have been talking about for a while inside the FBI and beyond about the chatter here in the U.S. Essentially being at unprecedented levels since this conflict, this phase of the conflict between Israel and Hamas exploded literally on the 7th of October. How do you think the killing of Aluri is going to impact things here in the U.S.?
I think Aurori's killing is certainly going to resonate and inspire the possibility for some degree of a lone actor threat, meaning I do think that the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, since 9/11, which has been a long time now, have done a wonderful job at kind of breaking the back of organized terror here in the continental United States, JJ. Having said that, this kind of event could spark some lone actor as a call for carrying out some sort of attack. I think that's your more probable kind of scenario. I don't see any organized terror here in the United States coming as a result of this. I would be much more worried if I was still back in Washington sitting at my seat as the deputy chief in the counterterrorism division. I would be more worried about where has Hezbollah surprised us in the past, and where are those locations. And off the top of my head, they hit us in Latin America. They had a very sophisticated car bomb we uncovered in Bangkok back in the day, and that's, to me, is the more worrisome part. You have a tactical threat here locally from lone actors inspired, then the strategic threat would be someplace that we least expect it to happen.
Anything you want to add that I haven't asked you about that you think is important?
Well, I think the next 72 hours will be telling. How quickly can Hezbollah and or Hamas mount some sort of retaliation? In the near term, I look for some degree of an elevated missile threat on Tel Aviv. But then in the next 72 hours, especially with the anniversary of General Soleimani's assassination tomorrow, if there's anything in the works, now would be the time to pull the trigger.
Fred Burton. As always, going back close to 20 years now, we've been talking. You have always been on point, and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to talk.
You're very kind, my friend. Thank you.